absolutely breakthrough experience.
Welcome to the Physical Performance Show, the show designed to inspire the pursuit of your physical best performance. I'm your host, Brad Beer. Listen in as we delve into how the world's top physical performers achieve their success, as well as the highs, the lows, and the journey of getting there. Let's get ready, set, let's go. Welcome to episode 304 of the Physical Performance Show, brought to you by Polar's world-leading GPS watches and heart rate monitors, including the Polar Vantage V2, Polar's most formidable sports watch to date. I'm Brad Beer, sports and exercise physiotherapist and exercise scientist by trade and training, and founder of Pogo Physio. Each week we bring you the latest and greatest information and inspiration designed to help you perform at your physical best. And of course we do this across our episodes, learn-ins catch-up episodes, coaches' corners, interest editions, featured performers, and our expert editions. But there are two episodes that are very popular and important at the end of every calendar year. That is our top 10 most downloaded featured performers and also our top 10 most downloaded expert editions. Now, in the 2021 calendar year, we are keeping our Physical Performance Show tradition going, and that is what you're in for today. Find out who our top 10 2021 featured performers are, who will take the overall most downloaded featured performer crown. In 2020, we saw British multi-Olympic triathlon medalist Johnny Brownlee take the top step, followed by New Zealand's marathon record holder and Olympian Zane Robertson, and New Zealand 12 times Ironman champion Cam Brown taking the bronze medal. Other top 10 featured performers from 2020 were Brett Robinson, Australian marathon Olympian and half marathon record holder, Iron Cowboy James Lawrence, Dave McNeil, British triathlete Vicky Holland, US Olympic Marathon representative Jake Riley, US Ultra and Marathon runner Mike Wardian, and as the 10th most downloaded episode of 2020 for featured performers, we had Abdi Abdirahman, 5 times US Olympian. All right, well, kicking off our 2021 top 10 featured performers most downloaded list, we have Australian cycling star Adam Hansen, who featured on episode 259. At the time of recording, Adam had just retired from the professional world cycling peloton after a 2-decade-long career where he started 29 Grand Tours and completed 26 of those. By completing the 2018 Giro d'Italia, Adam became the only rider in history to have completed 20 consecutive Grand Tours between 2011 and 2018. Adam secured stage wins in 2 stages across his career and has now turned his attention to Ironman triathlon. Now, with over 20 years in the professional cycling peloton, I was intrigued to learn from Adam around his approach to tapering. And here's what Adam had to say. We featured recently Inigo Mujica, Spanish applied exercise scientist around tapering for endurance sports. And he shared that, there's the different types of taper. What have you found over your career worked well for you leading into a Grand Tour? He spoke about, the step tapers or the linear or progressive decay tapers. Was there any? You must have had that dialed in after 29 of them.
Yeah, for me, it's going to be different almost every time. And the number one thing is to be as fresh as possible going in. And if you have doubts on your form and how hard the session will be, just go fresh as possible. And with the Grand Tour, it's a bit easier in a sense where you can go so fresh under that, the first you can say goodbye to the first 2 or 3 stages, and that will get you better for the rest of the race. But if you go on a little bit cooked or a little bit hot, you'll pay for it. So, yeah, definitely with your taper, if you're in doubt, just skip a session, make it easier. And I usually go day by day with feeling. What I don't like is when you have such a structured plan and you stick to it so much, when you have 1 or 2 days where you're not feeling so good, or the session before was a bit too taxing on your body, that you stick to it and you sort of create a hole for you. So I have a structured plan on tapering and also training where it's more like a guide, and you do alter it a little based on the day before. Or because I'm not a very good sleeper, if I don't have a good night's sleep, I will change a training session because of that. So I'm not so religious. I have the plan and everything, but I'm not so religious. I must do it because it was on my plan. I do, okay, I wake up in the morning, my plan is to do strength work. What is the best thing I can do today? I had not good sleep. Should I have like a more recovery day or extend it or do it tomorrow? Or will doing the session today compromise the rest of the week? And I do alter it. And with tapering, you have to do this also. If you don't have a good night's sleep, or you had too much stress from work, or you had some other factors that come into it, you want to be optimal then at the race day, and you don't want to do anything too much. And don't ever think that if you do too less, it's going to be worse. That's definitely, it's always best to be fresh, less fit, than super fit and cooked into a race.
Or even injured.
Exactly, yes.
And not on the start line. And just thinking through the science that has been shared on expert editions around recovery and optimal performance, the experts talk regularly about that approach that you've just embodied there, Adam, and that is that willingness to be flexible versus rigid and make day-to-day changes to what's planned.
Exactly, yeah.
So if you missed Adam Hansen's share-ins on episode 259, you know what to do. Pop it on your playlist and enjoy the highs, lows and learnings. Now, 2021's 9th most downloaded featured performer is New Zealand-based multi-sport champion and head coach of DA Endurance, dual coast-to-coast champion Dougal Allen. Now, Dougal featured on episode 269, and he shared with us a very interesting distinction between athletes being selfish versus self-focused. Here's what Dougal had to say around that delineation, and also how he coaches athletes to keep perspective around the pressures of life.
Flynn was 8 months old, so I was still learning what being a dad was all about. And up until that point, I'd been an athlete, and we all know athletes are, by their very nature, quite self-focused. I don't like the word selfish necessarily. I don't think that's necessarily the word to use, but you have to focus heavily on yourself to be successful as an athlete. So I was in this transition period, I guess, where I'd gone from only really having to think about myself to suddenly understanding the importance of being a dad. So it was the catalyst to positive change, but it didn't feel that way at the time.
As is typical of most of these moments of learning. Just on that concept of selfish versus self-focused, I think that's really powerful. You know, the language matters because you hear it all the time. Athletes are selfish. What's your aversion to that, Dougal?
You know, every athlete will be different, but I don't like the idea that we label athletes selfish, because athletes actually have this incredible effect on the people around them, be that their family or their friendship circles or their community, or as we move through the ranks, current athletes of the calibre, say, of Jan Frodeno, they inspire our understanding of what's possible. So even though the athlete probably goes about their day putting their own wants and needs first, to label them selfish, I think takes away from the fact that they give so much to those of us that follow the sport, or, as I say, even at the level of an everyday athlete, they might be the manager of a company or the father of children. And what they do day in and day out, I think, has a really positive effect on the thinking and the behaviour of the people around them.
How do you coach / bring perspective for the time-pressured, recreationally competitive athlete that is feeling the burden of trying to perform at their best, keep all balls in the air, family work? What advice would you give to people out there around managing those competing pressures and responsibilities?
Yeah, I think you sort of touched on it at the start of that question around giving perspective. And that's something I feel is one of my key roles as a coach, is to continue to factor in the bigger picture. Athletes will always become quite microscopic in their view. They're focused on the next session. You know, we all know as an athlete, anyone who's an athlete or is married to an athlete, that the last session has sort of defined their attitude. If they have had a bad swim, then suddenly they're a crap swimmer. If they nailed their swim, well, look out, world, I'm coming for you. And so as a coach, I think it's bringing perspective all the time to the bigger picture. And as an example, I guess through COVID times, I've had athletes that have qualified, say, for World Championship events and haven't been able to go, or the event's been cancelled in the most part. And so there's this awkward conversation that takes place where they've trained for, let's call it 16 weeks, and they're 4 weeks out and the race gets cancelled. And the question I sort of ask at that time is, do you regret the last 16 weeks? And they will almost always say that they don't regret it, because here they are, fit, healthy, prioritising what they consider to be important to them, their physical and mental health, I guess. And so had they not had that event, which has now been cancelled, as that carrot, perhaps they wouldn't be in that same mental and physical state. So I think that's answering your question, but in effect, it's bringing perspective all the time to my athletes that I work with.
So if you missed Dougal Allen's share-ins, highs, lows and learn-ins on episode 269, add that to your playlist as well. Now, coming in as the 8th most downloaded featured performer episode for 2021, we have 2016 Ironman 70.3 world champion and 20 times Ironman 70.3 champ, Australian-based triathlete Tim Reed. Now, Tim featured on episode 266, recounting his career highs, lows and learn-ins, and Tim shared with us the top 3 mistakes that he observes athletes making in the pursuit of their physical best.
The top 3 things, I think, not taking time off would be one of them. I think not being more disciplined with taking rest days, and how do I make that a bit more succinct? I think monitoring your recovery to know when you are flogging a dead horse. So that's something that, especially the last few years in Ironman training, I've become very cognizant of, is just because I could do something in a training camp environment and do 4-day structure and then take a rest day, that doesn't mean I can do that doing the same cycle when I'm at home with a lot of other stresses. And that's where I use sort of objective measures to be like, okay, it's 3 days, but HRV's dropped this much, or, the fatigue level, I'm grumpy, I've got to take a rest day now. So I think not taking complete rest days is easily one of the biggest mistakes athletes make. And I think it's a necessary just to psychologically refresh and be pumped for the next little phase. So, yeah, I think, so to sum it up, that was fattening up and taking proper weeks off, which I'm useless at. Second one, which I am pretty good at, was that taking, time off when your body actually needs it. A day off 2 days a week is not too much. And I think the other, a third aspect I find a bit frustrating is for triathletes, and this is triathlon specific, is people not treating the sport as one sport. So thinking that because they did swim intervals that morning, threshold intervals, that means they can still do threshold intervals on the bike or run that afternoon. Like, there's only so much stress the body can take. And so factoring in, almost taking lessons from people in single discipline sports and implementing it into triathlon, I think is really important. You don't see a swimmer or a cyclist try and do 2 types of sessions in the one day because the body just can't absorb it. But triathletes try and do it all the time. And so literally I'll do 1 quality session each day, and the other 2, if I do 2 other sessions or 1 other sessions, it's always quite comfortably aerobic. So that would be the third thing.
So if you missed Tim sharing his career highs, lows and learn-ins on episode 266, do jump back and enjoy the full episode. Now, our 7th most downloaded featured performer of 2021 is none other than multi-guest of the show, dual Australian track and field Olympian Eloise Wells. And Elsie featured as part of a month-long focus on return to sport for postpartum women. And during episode 273, Eloise candidly shared her reflections on managing expectations that she has of herself in the postpartum period and the importance of keeping things flexible and fun. How do women postpartum best manage their expectations of themselves, whether it's just running or life?
there's so much uncertainty and so much flexibility that's needed when you have a baby, because you think your day is going to go a certain way and then it just totally doesn't, because you're not really in control anymore. The baby is in control. And so I think that that's something that I've had to relearn each time too, is that, okay, you know, I wanted to get out for my first run at 9, or, you know, once Indy goes to school at 9:15, and then, but Sonny's unsettled, or he's teething, or I need to feed him first, or he's just pooped again. Like, there's so many variables that could throw a spanner in the works of your schedule. And so I think just being flexible and just being, you know, being okay. I'm definitely much more relaxed in terms of, like, I thrive with structure normally. And so, but having a newborn or having a toddler even, like you know, invariably can't necessarily have like a properly structured day, because it could just go AWOL, you know, at any moment. So yeah, I think just having flexibility and like being okay with that, and, you know, I'm trying not to take myself too seriously, and not, you know, like enjoying the process of, you know, finding that balance of being a mom and being here for my kids, but also having still a career and having a running career and something that I love to do. And in turn, taking them on that journey and teaching them something through that as well. Yeah, just keeping it light and having grace with yourself. You know, there's some days that, especially early on in the first 6 months with Sonny, that I just had to call everything off. You know, like, I'm not training today. He's just a wreck. I just need to focus on him. And I think it just comes down to priorities. And, you know, most of the time you're going to put your family first. Having grace with those days, and, as I said, being flexible and free enough to go, you know what, I'm going to make this up at some point. Might be tomorrow, might be next week, might be the week after, but I'll make it up in terms of training, and that'll be fun too. You know, I'll do a double day or a triple day, and, you know, because that, you know, time will allow it and Sonny will allow it. So I think just having that flexibility, knowing that things aren't always going to go the way that you had planned, you know, just lowering that expectation a bit, but still having a high level of ambition, which is such a fine balance, because you want to try and get the most out of everything, and you want to try and reach your full potential in terms of your career, but also, you know, you don't want it to be a stressful process. And I think being flexible and free and having grace with yourself is important so that you can enjoy the process.
Thank you, Eloise. Episode 273, if you happen to miss the full share-ins. Support for today's show comes from Polar. If you are looking for a world-class GPS watch leading into Christmas, then look no further than Polar. Polar have an incredible heritage. Headquartered in Finland, they have been the global driving force behind scientific wearables for over 40 years. They are the pioneers in and the world leaders in heart rate measurement technology. Their products provide you with 24/7 monitoring to enable you to plan better, train smarter, and recover fully. And heading into Christmas, there's never been a better time to explore the world of Polar with the brand new military-grade GridX Pro, the toughest watch out there, and also the stunning new Vantage V2 in Polar Red, Polar's most formidable multi-sport watch yet. Now, the team at Polar have generously offered up to 15% off selected products, jumping over to polar.com. For now, let's jump back with our 2021 Top 10 countdown for our featured performers. Now, coming in as the 6th most downloaded featured performer for 2021, we have 2002 and 2003's ITU World Cup Triathlon Series champion and Australian triathlon legend, fellow podcaster Greg Bennett, who shared from his career highs, lows and learnings on episode 279. Now, as is the Physical Performance Show's tradition, whereby I ask every guest who features their top piece of advice to help us perform at our physical best, Greg had a wonderful response when I posed that question to him. Here's Greg sharing on the power of passion, consistency, self-awareness, and why it is important that we all get better at acknowledging each other's strengths. If you could boil everything you've learned across 28 years of professional sport, 500 race starts, 100 plus wins, into one, and now your career in coaching and consulting and podcasting, but into one piece of advice to help the listener of this show perform at their physical best, what would Greg Bennett's sole piece of advice be?
It's a boring answer, and we've already touched on it. Stay consistent. Endure for one moment longer. It's this... I hate to be so boring, but I don't think there's any other advice to give somebody. That if you have something that you want, or you want to optimize your life, as you put it, then it will happen. But you must just keep turning up. Just keep turning up. And obviously consistency is driven by passion. So, ask yourself, am I truly, truly passionate about this? Or is this what my family and friends think is right for me? We say that with Olympians all the time, all these kids chasing Olympics. I'm like, do you really want to be an Olympian? Or is that what, your family, friends, and society really want? So be honest with yourself, and if you're passionate, then you can stay consistent. But that passion fuels the consistency, and then magic can happen.
And your passion, you've used that word a few times, Greg, your passion. Where does that come from? Like, where does Greg Bennett's passion come from?
Oh, probably stems from insecurities as a high schooler. I mean, it's like this, where do our personalities generate from? And it's kind of, for me, it's, I think, like I said, when I was a high schooler, it was this, who am I, and the big sports were rugby and rowing, and I'm this tiny kid that went to the boat shed and they made me a coxswain instead of a rower, and I'm like, I don't want to be a coxswain, but I found triathlon, and suddenly I was like, this is who I'm meant to be. I'm somebody here, or I wasn't somebody, I was a 15, 16-year-old kid, but I became known as the triathlete, and this became... And then you kind of go, you get this little bit of a pat on the back. Yeah. And then you go, I like that pat on the back. And it's kind of addictive, right? People think you're okay at something, and then you think you're okay at something. It starts to amplify, and the passion just keeps building and building. And, with whatever you do, the pats on the back are really important. And I think that's where I want to touch on something where we talked about strengths and finding your strengths. And I think we need to help each other recognize each other's strengths, and what Laura and I often do is we sit down and go, let's list off each other's strengths. So I'll tell Laura what I think she's good at. It's amazing. Even when your wife tells you what, you're good at, you go, okay, I'm going to do that more now. Yeah. Now I'm more passionate about it, and we don't spend enough time. We're very good at pointing out our weaknesses to each other. Very good at that, which is terrible. Gosh. But recognizing a strength in one another, especially those closest to it, is so empowering. And that empowerment then helps you follow your passion. So
it was a wonderful episode full of highs, lows, and learnings. If you missed it, jump back to episode 279 with Greg Bennett. Now, coming in as our fifth most downloaded featured performer for 2021, we have Australian cycling legend and 4 times winner of the Tour Down Under, none other than Olympian Simon Gerrans. Simon featured on episode 282, whereby I caught up with Simon whilst he was in hotel quarantine, having returned from the 2021 Tour de France. And Simon shared around the importance of persevering through hardship and why it matters so much that we work hard. Where you said some of the pro riders would come up to you and put their hands on your back and just say, hey, look, keep going, this will turn.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think it was, some guys that I had a lot of respect for in the peloton, they'd literally come up and say, you're not doing anything wrong here. And you're just going through a really unlucky patch in your career and they were right. You go through these difficult moments and, you just got to keep getting back up again and fronting up and, you get through it to hopefully enjoy more success in the future.
One of the things I love as a physio about the pro peloton is just the toughness. I mean, you hit the deck, you have a touchdown, normally fractures of some sort, and normally days before you're back on the bike trying to maintain fitness and build again. I mean, it's normal from your vantage point when you're inside that. From the outside world looking in, it's quite the feat. Do you just get better at the suffering, or is it something just innately born with? What do you reckon? Or is this part of the job?
I think as an endurance athlete, you become accustomed to suffering. That's what your life's all about. And when you get to that really high level, it's actually, who can suffer for the longest and who can go the deepest that really win the races. But you're right, professional cyclists are a bit of a unique breed. And it was, commentating the Tour de France this year where there were so many horrific crashes. It was on stage one, there were a couple of big crashes, and Marc Soler finished the stage with 2 broken wrists. Type thing. And you hear of guys, limping in with collarbone injury or collarbone fractures, and big lineup for the X-ray machine after the stage. And you think, well, these guys are pretty unique. And I experienced that as well. I'd finished stages of Grand Tours with broken bones, and you just don't want to give up, because once you step off, that's it. You're not lining back up again the next day. So you push through however you can to finish the stage and complete the race. But cyclists are pretty unique when it comes to that, that's for sure.
Yeah, just so impressive. This year's tour, Caleb Ewan's crash in the sprint, I forget the stage number, but watching his team's little video about him after it, this guy's just hit the deck at maybe 70K, 60-something K an hour, and he's walking off the course. He's walking into the hotel room at the other side with half his butt hanging out his cycling nicks. It's quite something. Gero, I've heard you say that there's nothing that's impossible if you do the hard yards and you're consistent. Any other ingredients for the psychological side of persevering, as you say, a life spent of suffering?
No, but that resilience and that perseverance is a real key. And, you see it time and time again. You get someone come into the sport and they're showing huge potential, but they don't have the ability to just be consistent in their training and and commit consistently to the sport, and they never last long. So it's the guys that sort of have good careers and really stay at the top level for a long time. They're so passionate about what they do, and they front up day in, day out, and they're really consistent in their approach. So for me, that is a key ingredient. And there's a great saying, hard work beats talent when talent doesn't work. That's really what it stands out in professional cycling.
There were plenty of highs, lows and learnings from Simon's episode 282. And the fourth most downloaded featured performer for 2021 is none other than Australian swimming superstar who featured on episode 284, 2016 100-metre freestyle Olympic champion and 2021 silver medalist in the 100-metre free, Kyle Chalmers. Kyle captivated us all with his career highs, lows and learnings and his charisma. And in particular, Kyle shared a wonderful story about mindset coaching with one of his Australian swimming teammates, Zach Insinerti, which gave us a glimpse into the mindset of a champion. You go into these races believing this is my race, no one can take it away from me. It's a special inherent self-belief that you have in yourself, which is remarkable.
It is, and I only say that when I get behind the blocks. I'm a person that probably lives in a bit of fear and doubt and whatever. From the semi-final through to the final, I start to doubt myself and stress out, and then I get to the final, and I walk out on pool deck and I'm in the Olympic final, and that comes into my mind, and I believe I can win. And it's no different than if I'm racing at state champs or the Olympic Games. I always believe and back myself in. I think, UFC fighters, no matter who they're fighting or boxing or whatever, they could be 50th in the world versus the best guy. They believe they're going to win. And if they don't, they talk the talk and make sure they do believe it. But I think swimming and competitive or professional sport needs to be no different. I don't understand people's mindset when they don't believe they can win. And I even, I'm a person that, even with Zach Insinerti, who's one of my great mates, and I want him to swim so well. So I kind of like to life coach him in a lot of ways and kind of share my ways with him. But even when we were standing in Tokyo, we were out there having a bit of a wrestle, and I said, if we were to box on, who would win? And he was like, you would win. And I was like, see, Zach, that's why you'll never be a winner, because you don't have a winning. You need to believe no matter what you could win. And I'm a person that's like, I box on with something like Zach. I know I'm going to win because that's just how my mindset works, type thing. And I just think that I want Zach. If I can get that going in Zach, he's going to be such an incredible asset to the relay team. But I think individually as well, he'll be amazing. He's pretty raw in swimming, and So, I try to give him a bit of guidance here and there and fire him up a bit, which is nice.
So you do think that mindset can be trained, Kyle?
I hope so. I hope in a way it can be trained. If it flickers something in his mind, he's like, actually, yeah, that's a good point. Maybe that's the way I do need to think about things, and I've kind of done my job. But also at the end of the day, he's a competitor for me, so I'm not going to be, a psychologist to him. But he's a great mate, and I hope I get to have him in the marshalling room with me individually in the years to come.
So episode 284 with Kyle Chalmers was one for the ages. If you missed it, jump back over. There were so many career highs, lows and learn-ins shared by Kyle. Support for today's show comes from Precision Hydration. I caught up recently with Andy Blow, co-founder of Precision Hydration and dual guest of the Physical Performance Show, who shared around Precision Hydration's key focuses at the moment.
Yeah, Brad, it's been a great project this last year because what athletes want to know is how much fluid, how much sodium, how much carbohydrate they need to take in per hour. And we know from all the studies we've done, we know from all the scientific evidence out there that those numbers are quite varied between individuals. So what we've been working hard to do is pull together a bunch of case studies for athletes across a range of endurance sports, triathlon, running, cycling, swimming, to see how much fluid, how much sodium, how much carbohydrate are people taking in per hour, and then how successful they've been in their events. And the idea with these case studies isn't that they're up there for people to copy, but they're to get your head around the numbers that might work for you and to give you a platform to build on. And then in conjunction with the tools that we've got on the website, like the online sweat test, the quick carb calculator, you can dive in and use those tools to get your numbers sorted out and start that trial and error process to see how much fluid, how much sodium, how much carb is going to work for you when you're out there competing in the summer heat.
Thank you, Andy. Now, the Precision Hydration team have generously offered 15% off your first electrolyte order or any of the products from their brand new fuel range by simply using the code TPPS at checkout over at precisionhydration.com, and do take the online sweat test and use the quick carb calculator. Today's show is also lovingly brought to you by AMP, Human and Momentous, building the future of human performance. AMP Human are the creators of the globally loved and widely used PR Lotion. PR Lotion is designed to maximize your training and recovery by unlocking bicarb, a natural electrolyte that improves muscle function and helps you combat fatigue during hard workouts. PR Lotion is used by some of the world's best endurance athletes, including Eliud Kipchoge and the Ineos 159 project, and some of the planet's best sporting teams and toughest cyclists. Train, compete, repeat with AMP Human PR Lotion. And if you'd like to get your hands on AMP Human's PR Lotion, then the team have offered up a saving of 25% when you buy your PR Lotion from the AMP Human brand store over at bikeexchange.com. Use the code TPPS25 at the checkout. That's TPPS25 for 25% off your AMP Human PR Lotion over at bikeexchange.com. For now, let's jump back with our 2021 top 10 most downloaded featured performer on a roll. Who will take the podium spots? Now, coming in as the third most downloaded featured performer episode for 2021, we have Genevieve Gregson and Patrick Tiernon, both repeat guests of the show, who we caught up with on the other side of Tokyo 2021's Olympic Games, where both Genevieve Gregson and Patrick Tiernon succumbed to Olympic Games experiences that they were not expecting. Now, what made these moments so raw was that the world's eyes were on their respective Olympic finals. Genevieve Gregson in the 3,000 metre steeplechase and Patrick Tiernon in the final of the men's 10,000 metres. And who can forget Genevieve Gregson succumbing to a ruptured Achilles tendon in front of the world's eyes as she attempted to land the final water jump. And here's Jen trying to process the trauma and disappointment of such a serious injury just days following the incident at the Tokyo 2021 Olympic Games. Australia's heart was with you and the world athletics and further abroad. I mean, I think of athletes, and any injury is more of a psychological challenge most of the time than a physical battle. And I just felt like the trauma involved for a running athlete with such an injury, there's no words for it. It's traumatic, right?
Yeah, I think that's what it is. Like, it's. I was trying to explain it to my family because they've obviously seen my career unfold, right from day one. But I've had plenty of injuries in my time. I haven't obviously ever been injured at the Olympic Games or even in an event. I've broken my ankle one time in the steeplechase in 2013, and that was sad at the time. But this was a different experience, I think. When athletes talk about everything that goes into being at the Olympics, and I mean, it's more than just the training. I was even saying to Ryan, like, when he realised that he wasn't going to make it to the Olympics this year, that was like a hard reality for us to accept. But, there's just so many amazing 1,500-metre male runners right now. He switched his focus to, putting everything into my running now, and it became one of those things where we're no longer two individuals focusing on our career. It was, both of us focusing on mine and getting me to the start line. And he's well aware of my Achilles and what it requires to keep me going. And, he put in hours of massage and frictioning my Achilles and being in the gym with me and, researching different things to, maybe give me a little pain relief. It's not just the time and effort that an individual athlete puts into getting to the start line. It's your support crew, what everyone's done to get you there, the time they've put in, your loved ones, the family that, are the ones that don't get to see you all year round, and the sacrifices you make. And I think with this one, what hit home so much was, just feeling like, not that you let people down, just that it kind of came to an end and there was no result. But, there's 5 years and more that go into it, and and in no way do I feel like a failure. I know what I've achieved, and I know the athlete I am, but I think it's just, that you got nothing to show. You feel like you kind of sit there and you're like, at the end, it finished with a ruptured Achilles and wheeling off a track, and that's it. So I think this one was hard. And also, I'm well aware that I'm 32 years old, I'm not, 23, with a massive career in front of me. I take every year as serious as I can because I love what I do and I want to do it forever. But reality is you can't do it forever. So this road is going to be definitely the hardest one I've had. But I think that's why I've found it a little harder to wrap my head around than I have in the past.
And here's fellow guest of episode 283, an Australian Tokyo recap, Patrick Tiernon, who so valiantly won the hearts of Australians as he succumbed to heat illness with just 150 metres left to run in the men's 10,000 metre track final. Patrick fell, but valiantly picked himself up several times to just cross the finish line. I mean, with 9,500 metres in, with, 9,850 metres in, really, from the appearances of the television coverage, you were there. You were looking at a front pack finish, top 10 finish, Australian 10,000 metre Olympic final as an Australian. Incredible run. You were right there. Yep. When did you start to know that you were in trouble? Did it happen quite quickly, or were you feeling a little bit off before that point, the first collapse?
I mean, realistically, the second lap, the penultimate lap, felt like it was going to be my last lap. I finally got the feelings you get when you're finishing a race. Like your legs start to get a little lactic, your shoulders start to tense up a bit, and you're really focusing on trying to relax everything to keep your leg turnover going. So I kind of knew that in the back of my head, but, you know, part of you thinks, it's meant to be hard. Like, it's the Olympic 10K final. You're going to be working bloody hard to keep up with these blokes. So it was one of those things where I thought, I'm lactic, but I can still, maybe they'll just, you know, get away from me in the last lap. But it never sort of crossed my mind that I was going to be absolutely spent. And I think that really started to kick in sort of right as we approached the bell. I could just start to feel myself losing a little bit of momentum. And, you know, I'm not even thinking in my head that it was going to be as drastic as it was, but I'm thinking then, like, okay, I got to, you know, maybe just focus on standing tall and, like, finishing this race. And then I got to about 250 metres to go, I think, and I felt myself starting to lean forward. And I thought, oh, shit, I'm gonna fall here if I don't try and do something. So I was trying, all these thoughts are going through my head, like, all right, maybe just like stop and stand up, or like just walk a little bit. But it got to the point where I was so far forward in how I was running that I was like, I'm falling over. It's going to happen at some point, and I'm trying to stay up. And so I collapsed at about 180 metres to go. And I thought, okay, I'll just jog it in now. And stood up to jog and fell over immediately again. And that's when when I fell over immediately again, that's when I thought, I'm in real trouble just to get to the finish here. So, yes, I got up, was a little more aware the second time I got up and started sort of jogging. And then I think I got to about 80 or 70 metres to go down the home straight, and just thoughts are going through my head. I'm like, this can't be happening again. It can't be happening here. And I'm just like, I'm trying to stand up. I'm trying to walk a little bit when I feel myself going. And I think the last time I fell, I honestly wasn't moving very quick. And I know I wasn't moving quick at all that last lap, but I was probably jogging on the spot when I fell over the last time. And it was just, my body was just done. It was just giving out on me everywhere. So to be honest with you, I'm not really sure how I got across the line. I knew I crossed the line, and first thing I saw was the wheelchair, and I thought, that's where I'm going now. I got to sit down. It was tough. I think that last lap was, trying to get yourself up and finish, but also realising what's happening. To realise how close I'd got to potentially having the best race of my career. It was trying to raw and hard to deal with. That last lap was, obviously physically very challenging, but also mentally and emotionally just trying to wrap my head around what was happening was really difficult.
I mean, those splits for the last 800, I believe, was 1:53, and that final 400, I believe, they were closing around 53 seconds.
Yeah.
So it was on, and you were there. And then, Pat, you're into the wheelchair, and then straight off, obviously, for medical assistance.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So I think I was under the stadium for the better part of 35, 40 minutes. It could be longer, it could be shorter. I'm really not sure. But, yeah, it was a lot. Initially, I was, my breathing was very quick. I think my body temperature was up around 41 degrees Celsius. So our team doctor was saying another, less than half a degree more. It would have been taking me to the hospital for fear of heat stroke. But, so I think, they rushed me off and they put me on a stretcher, and I was just really panicked for probably the better part of 10, 15 minutes, probably the better part of 20 minutes, honestly. One, because of, so you're on the track 1 second, and then all of a sudden you've got oxygen mask on your face, and you're lying down, you're getting your body temperature checked, and, they were doing it the most accurate way possible. And the other thing was, it's, you're in Japan, so there's 8 or 9 people speaking Japanese around you, which just like when you're already panicked and then you can't understand anything that's being said around you, it's really kind of just overwhelming.
If you're looking for some inspiration and grit, then look no further than episode 283 with Genevieve Gregson and Patrick Tiernon. Now, coming in as the second most downloaded featured performer for 2021, it's none other than dual Olympic triathlon champion Alistair Brownlee. When the Physical Performance Show was first birthed, Alistair Brownlee was on the 2-interview featured performer list very early on, and it took several years to catch up with Alistair, but he certainly did not disappoint on episode 292, recounting from the most remarkable of career highs, lows, and learn-ins. Both Alistair and his younger brother Johnny Brownlee transcended the sport of triathlon with that infamous finish with Johnny becoming heat-stricken and Alistair carrying Johnny across the line. It hit international headlines, and I couldn't pass up the opportunity, having heard Johnny recount his recollections from that incident on episodes 216 and 217, to hear from Alistair around his reflections of that day in sport. And here's what Alistair recalls from that moment in time.
Johnny has to win and to be sure of taking the title, and right now he seems to have lost control of his legs, and this is worrying. And he's starting to slow, and there is a little way to go. There's half a K to go, and Johnny is running out of time and is losing his sense of direction. This is worrying. Oh, goodness me. This is a horrible sight. Jonathan Brownlee has lost it now and has staggered to a stop at the side of the course, and Alistair's stopped to help him along. And Alistair is going to try and carry his brother home. Dramatic scenes in Cozumel as the Olympic champion carries his younger brother towards the podium.
Oh my God, I cannot believe what we are seeing here. Matt, is this allowed? Is he allowed to help his brother? You know, is that part of the rules? I'm not too sure. We've never seen anything like this before.
Unbelievable scenes. Unbelievable scenes in Cozumel. The Brownlee brothers arm in arm, but it's not by way of celebration. But we have to be concerned about the health of Jonathan Brownlee, and they're not even on the final stretch yet.
Johnny expressed his gratitude for what you did, and on retrospect, the fact that you could have won the race that day, run to the victory potentially, and obviously you sacrificed it for Johnny. But that did change the face of triathlon in the world's eyes. That was front page news no matter where you were in the world, and there wasn't a single soul in the world that didn't look at that as a great example of sportsmanship, brotherly love, and just all things that are great about sport. So looking back, we're 5 years post that now. How does Alistair Brownlee reflect on that moment now?
Yeah, well, thanks. Thanks for bringing it up again. Yeah, it was just what happened at the time. It happened really quick. Didn't really have a lot of time to think about it. The kind of after effect of, even now, I was in Spain last weekend for the event and staying at a hotel, and yeah, it's not you're the guy that won 2 Olympic gold medals in triathlon. It's, oh, you're one of those brothers. It did absolutely transcend triathlon. It took us to a whole new level and demographic of people, which I think at times we both kind of struggled with a bit, and we were like, oh, wow, we've done this sport our whole life. We've trained as hard as we can. We've done everything we can to be the best athletes we can, and that's manifested itself as Olympic medals. That should be, what you get the plaudits, I guess, and recognition for. Not that that's what you do it for, but, that's where it should come from. But actually, we're getting it for this crazy moment where Johnny blew up and lost the World Championships. And that definitely took a bit of adjustment for both of us. But yeah, it's been it was interesting for us. Very crazy few days afterwards.
Johnny mentioned that he woke up the next morning. It had been one of your training mates, Richard Vargas' stag party the night before there in Mexico, and he was in bed, obviously recovering, and he woke up, turned his phone on. His phone shut down because it was just so overloaded with what was then a flow of messages from Gordon Ramsay and J.K. Rowling and everyone under the sun, just checking in on him and also sort of saying, wow, that was special. Your phone would have been going wild too, I imagine.
Yeah, it was really mad. I went to bed late that night, very late that night. And, I had been celebrating and enjoying myself, but I really remember feeling a bit kind of down and what's gone on here? Have I done something wrong? Is Johnny all right? I was on the receiving ends of calls, obviously, from my mum and worried family, and rightly so, they're worried about Johnny's health, and on the receiving end of kind of being accused of doing something wrong by the referees and whatever, that did get overturned, thankfully. But and I went to bed that night being like, oh, wow, what have I done? This has been a disaster. And then to wake up the next morning and literally have messages from everyone I know, I think. Yeah, it was just the opposite ends of the spectrum. It was really strange.
But in the moment, what else could have you done? Could have you, just run past your heat illness-stricken brother? The alternative actions would have been,
That's true. No one's actually ever brought that up before, I don't think. So, yeah, good. That's a unique question. Thank you. That is very true. I don't think I would have got quite the same amount of publicity for running straight past him, but I think anything that I did get probably would have been bad.
And how could we not ask one of endurance sport's greatest figures, dual Olympic champion, for their top piece of advice? I did just that, and here's what Alistair had to say around the importance and the power of being consistent. If you could boil everything you've learnt through your career to date, ongoing, plus your recent publication, Relentless, into one piece of advice to help listeners of the show perform at their physical best, what would that one bit of advice be, Alistair?
I'm really sorry, and this advice is so boring, but it is so true, and that's consistency. Consistency.
Consistency in showing up, consistency in approach, what, all of it?
Yeah, all of it, yeah. Show up day in, day out, consistency in training, consistency in effort, consistency in not those big days, and not too little days, and consistency in approach to life and recovery.
So that was Alistair Brownlee, our silver medalist, if you like, as the second most downloaded featured performer for 2021. And now, drum roll. It is time to announce 2021's most downloaded featured performer. It is the current Olympic triathlon champion, current World Triathlon Series champion, and now Ironman triathlon world record holder, none other than Norway's Kristian Blumenfeldt. Now, we'd caught up with Kristian Blumenfeldt and bronze triathlon medalist Hayden Wild for a featured performer episode back on 286 in 2021, late August, but it was the recently released bonus episode 301 in late November, dissecting the Ironman triathlon world record, 7 hours, 21 minutes and 12 seconds, that literally blew up. We were very fortunate to get access as one of the first interviews that Kristian did following his historic Cozumel Ironman triathlon world record setting performance. There were lots of great listener questions that Kristian answered, and we asked Kristian around his top tips for remaining injury-free and managing his body. Now, there was a surprising admission from the current Olympic triathlon champion, acknowledging that he has not had tissue work for over 12 months at the time of recording. Here's Kristian sharing around the importance of uninterrupted training and body management. Kristian, the physiotherapist in me, is always quite intrigued with your body management. Aside from the navicular bone stress injury that you had circa 2014-15 from memory, you've been remarkably injury-free. How did you steward your body between the Olympics, the World Triathlon Series victory in Edmonton, and then Cozumel? What was your body maintenance routine looking like?
Well, I think it's like the key is to have the confidence to back off early enough. Like if you feel like something niggling like in your foot for 1 session, 2 session, 3 session, and it's getting worse and worse, then you kind of should have the confidence of backing it off a little bit rather than just following the program. So I guess that's maybe what I do kind of. And often if I feel something in my foot, I might, instead of going to the track and smashing it, I often go to the treadmill instead, and I do put the treadmill on 6, 7, 8% and kind of do the similar session, just with a lower impact, to always try to kind of keep the balance there.
Yeah, and back on episode 117, you commented that you learnt your lesson from that stress fracture years ago now, that you don't blindly follow the program because it's expected, rather make these day-to-day decisions and be disciplined to listen to your body and then take appropriate steps.
Yeah, and also like be a little bit clever, like in the way you're building up your training. Like if you haven't run too much kind of speed workouts on the track, it might not be the best one to go like suddenly just ramp it up to some fast 400. Then it may be better to have a little bit kind of confident kind of, okay, if I'm running like 1/10 per 400 now, I don't need to go 160 or 105 immediately straight away. Kind of maybe finish off your last one at 105 just to kind of get the strength training in your muscle, but don't overdo it like this. So trying to be a little bit clever with the way you're ramping up your training.
Intensity control, such a key theme. Massage therapy, hands-on therapies, stretching, foam rolling, strength and conditioning. Was there a routine there, or just daily work?
Yeah, I try to have a routine now on stretching on the overbody to get more flexible for the swimming. So that's something I do like twice a day. It takes like 4 minutes. That I do like with the chest and also like hanging and using elastic bands. A little bit of stretching after the runs, but actually no physio, no massage. So last time when I had this leg injury back in December, when we called each other and I got some massage kind of down on the leg to loosen it up a little bit.
So that was almost 12 months ago.
Yeah, that's right. So I think the best way to stay injured is kind of to be aware of like what kind of shoes you're wearing, kind of what kind of surface you're running on, and how you're building up your intervals and all of those kind of things. And also the longer you can stay injury-free, the more you likely will probably stay injury-free forever, almost, I guess.
Gosh, that is just so wise. It's a recurring theme from experts on the show, Christian, that uninterrupted training is the key. As you say, train smarter and harder and aim for that uninterrupted training workload as opposed to boom-bust cycles with injuries. So that was Christian Blumenfeldt on episode 301, dissecting his Ironman triathlon world record, 7 hours, 21 minutes and 12 seconds. And I think the world was stunned when Christian acknowledged that effort was circa 89% of his potential. And in case you missed it, Christian himself has been a long-term listener of the Physical Performance Show. So much so that he has memorized the introduction to the show. Take a listen.
Hi guys, and welcome to the Physical Performance Show. The highs, the lows, and the journey of getting there with Christian Blumenfeldt, the Olympic champion, the world champion, and the Ironman world record holder.
So there you have it, our 2021 top 10 most downloaded featured performers with the honour roll and our podium place getters. It's been a wonderful year of learning from our great featured performers, so thank you for all of their contributions. Now, if you know someone who would enjoy this top 10 countdown, then please go ahead and introduce them to the show. If you'd like to support the work ongoing of the show, then please consider becoming a Patreon supporter. It's simple. Simply jump over to Patreon, search for the Physical Performance Show, and there you can pledge your support from just $5 per month. In return, we'll grant you complimentary access to our live stream events, ticketed at $49 normally per person, including back catalogue live stream presenters Shona Harrelson on optimizing recovery and Dr. Stephen Seiler around polarized training. More recently, we featured UK-based sports dietitian Rinny McGregor, who shared a wonderful live stream fueling the endurance athlete. So jump over to patreon.com and there you can pledge your support and become a Learnings member. As always, a massive thank you to the great folk who make this show possible each and every week. Daryl Misson, audio engineering, Susan Wilkins, show administration, Matthew Olding, show graphic design. Another shout out to today's show partners, Polar, Precision Hydration, and Amp Human. Thank you for your support. Now we look to next week's special episode, which will be our 2021 Top 10 countdown for our most downloaded expert editions. Who will take the top gong as 2021's most downloaded expert edition? Find out next week. Until then, keep pursuing your physical best performance. I'm Brad Beer, and this has been the Physical Performance Show.